Hey, hello. I'm alright. I'm not sure what I'm going to read today. I think because I was reading this post, I overread it. I read half and then the other half, but maybe I will read it from the beginning again out loud because I thought it was a good post. And maybe I will record a video about this post, but changing the frame from hyperlinks, as he talks about it here, to YouTube videos. I think that's the idea that I had. And I will see how that goes. How are you doing? Sounds good to me. Oh, okay. Okay. Today, well, hypertext as literature again. Good, I think nothing really happened here, so I never really know how to answer. I don't know. I will ask until maybe something happens. I also thought, but I will do this tomorrow, I think. But I say it so in case I forget tomorrow, you remind me. I found I found a place that I think I want to apply. I found it on an Instagram ad. Like they advertised to me, right? So I'm like, if you pay money, literally pay money for me to see this, I mean, I will apply. I will concede. Even though I'm not sure how good of an idea it is. But yeah, I thought of making an application, like one of the, again, another application to a place. But yeah, that's tomorrow. Today, it's this, reading this post. Yeah, my mom asks me this, and I really never know what to say. Yeah, I guess my mom asks me as well. Okay, I have to change the description though, because I'm not reading this today. Oh, okay, actually, I am reading this today. Actually, I am reading these two. Yesterday was not when I read these two. Oh well. Okay. This is the post that I wanted to read. The rhetoric of the hyperlink. The hyperlink is the most elemental of the bundle of the ideas that we call the web. If the bit is the quark of information, the hyperlink is the hydrogen molecule. It shapes the microstructure of information today. Surprisingly though, it is nearly as mysterious now as it was back in July 1945, when Vannevar Bush first proposed the idea in his Atlantic Monthly article, As We May Think. July 4th will mark the second anniversary of Ribbon Farm. I started on July 4th, 2007. And to celebrate, I am going to tell you everything I've learned so far about the hyperlink. So this is a post from 2009. That is the lens through which I tend to look at more traditional macro-level blog introspection topics, such as how to make money blogging and will blogs replace newspapers? So with a happy second birthday River Farm and a happy 64th birthday hyperlink, let's go explore the hyperlink. Image from Wikipedia. Hypergrammar and hyperstyle. The hyperlink is not a glorified electronic citation and library retrieval mechanism. The electronic library perspective that the hyperlink is merely a convenience that comes with the cost of amplifying distraction is a myopic one. But lousy though as it is, that is our starting point. The first airports were designed to look like railway stations after all. As McLuhan said, we see the world through a rearview mirror. We march backwards into the future. Turn around, backward march. This is the default mental model most people have of hyperlinks, a model borrowed from academic citation and made more informal. Implicit inline. Nick Carr believes that Google is making us stupid. Right? Believes with the thing. The strange thing is that right now I am reading. Yeah, I guess the thing is that this is a blog post, right? So it is kind of meant to be read not on YouTube, I guess. You are experiencing me reading it. So you are getting my read on it, which makes sense because it is my channel. But yeah, that is also kind of part of the thing, right? So basically, this example, you see that this is the citation of when Nick Carr says that Google is making us stupid, right? But for example, here, he introduces the first hyperlink. So I could have started reading this article right here, right? But I continued reading the blog post. Okay, back to this. This is the default model most people have of hyperlinks, a model borrowed from academic citation and made more informal, right? Nick believes that Google is making us stupid. Explicit inline. Nick Carr believes that Google is making us stupid. See this article in The Atlantic. Both are simple ports of constructs like Nick believes, Carr 2008, that Google is making us stupid. This is classic like academic literature, right? If you read a paper, this is how reading a paper looks like. And it's pretty annoying, to be honest, because yeah, I don't know, this interrupts the flow of reading it, IMO. There are a couple of mildly interesting things to talk about here. For example, the hypergrammatical question of whether to link the word believes, as I have done, or the title. Similarly, you can ask whether this or this article or this article in The Atlantic, right? You could make this article, the link, all of that, or this, or all of this, or only this, or this article, or only the article part. There are a lot of questions to be asked if you go granular. There is also the visual style question of how long the selected anchor phrase should be. The more words you include, the more prominent the invitation to click. Yes, for example, if you put see this in The Atlantic and all of this is a blue sentence, maybe you're like, okay, I click, right? But overall, this mental model is self-limiting. If links were only glorified citations, a strong and white hypergrammar, hyperstyle guide would have little new raw material to talk about. Let's get more sophisticated and look at how hyperlinks break out the glorified citation mold. Turn around, forward march. Interesting. Hyperlinking as a form of content mixing. Here are two sentences that execute similar intentions. There are many kinds of fruit, such as apples, oranges, bananas. These are the links to the fruit article in Wikipedia, apples article in Wikipedia, oranges article in Wikipedia, and bananas article in Wikipedia. And then this is kind of the second way of linking these things, which I also found interesting, right? I'm not sure where I first encountered this, but he also says the same thing. But I was also kind of like intrigued by this, right? And I have replicated it sometimes. There are many kinds of fruit. Like this is apple, orange, banana, and fruit. I don't remember where I first saw this clever method of linking, the second one, but I was instantly fascinated, and I use it when I can. Same, you could say. Well, not sure if when I can, but I think it's interesting. And also, I think I may have seen it for the first time on Reddit, right? Or on 9gag or places like that, right? Or on forums maybe, where people, I think on Reddit, I noticed, because on Reddit there are plugins that let you kind of change links into something else, right? So for example, if something links to an image, there appears like a plus sign that you can open, and yeah, it appears like, and it breaks up, and you can see the link more clearly, right? So there would be people who would put links on dots on for example the period at the end of the sentence, and that would be kind of sneaky, and it was to me it was like surprising to see. This method is a new kind of grammar. You are mixing form and content, and blending figure and ground into a fun open the secret package game. From a traffic grabbing perspective, the first method will leak less, because if you already know all about apples, the link tells you what it is about, and you won't click. So if you want to reference a really unusual take on lapels, the second method is more effective. Real hyperlink artists know that paradoxically, the more people are tempted to click away from your content, the more they want to keep coming back. There is a set of trade-offs involving compactness, temptation to click, foreshadowing to eliminate surprise and retain the reader, and altruism in passing on the reader. But the medium is friendlier to generosity in yielding the stage. This yielding the stage metaphor is important, and we will come back to it. But possibly, these and similar tricks seem trivial to you. Let's do a more serious example. To me, they don't seem trivial, right? To me, already, this was the only part that I read I already kind of overread this, but I mostly had read this. And to me, this was already pretty fascinating, and it was interesting to read. And yeah, this paragraph, for example, real hyperlink artists know that paradoxically, the more people are tempted to click away from your content, the more they want to keep coming back, right? And I thought of this, and I was like, does this apply to YouTube as well? Because YouTube videos, right? When you watch videos about making YouTube videos and about growing on YouTube and all this, people will tell you this, right? People will say things like, only put one video at the end so that when you watch the video and you say, okay, now that if you have watched this video until the end, I am very sure that you will like this video, right? And you point to this video and you put just one video, right? That is kind of what people tell you to do. And here, in blogs, he says kind of the opposite thing, right? He says, the more people are tempted to click away from your content, the more they want to keep coming back, right? So he kind of says the opposite things. He says something like, okay, instead of waiting until the end to link something, link shit all over, right? Start linking here. He starts this article with this link, right? He, not even in the first paragraph, he already tempts you to leave, right? He says, you can leave. And maybe if I had started reading this and I said, what is this? And I started clicking, maybe I would have taken a fucking long time to read this, and then I would have forgotten about the original article, right? This is kind of what I thought about. And I thought, does this relate to YouTube as well? How do I watch YouTube? When I watch YouTube and the YouTuber says, okay, you can see in the end cards, blah, 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 or no, you can see in this video from last week, I talk about it. I'm pointing to the corner where because on YouTube here, right, is where the videos appear. Sometimes people do that, right? Then there are people who tell you things like, watch this video first, right? And that comes with a risk, both algorithmically and like really, right? When you say watch this video first, you take the risk of them going to that video and then either not finishing that one or like watching it but then forgetting to come back to the other one, right? There is a risk. And here he says this thing about the more they want to keep coming back. So I think that is a great insight into like people, I guess, right? I don't know. I thought it was interesting. But possibly, these and similar tricks seem trivial to you. So to me, they don't seem trivial, but maybe they are trivial. So let's continue. Let's do a more serious example. Hyperlinking as blending of figure, ground, and voice. A while ago on the Indian site sulekha.com, I wrote an article pondering the interesting difficulties faced by non-European descent writers like me in developing an authentic voice in English. Postmodernists, especially those interested in post-colonial literature, obsess a lot about this sort of thing. Gayatri Spivak, for instance, wrote a famous article, Can the Subaltern Speak? But scarily impenetrable people like Spivak are primarily interested in themes of oppression and politics. I am primarily interested in the purely technical problem of how to write authentically in English, in cases where my name and identity are necessary elements of the text. Interesting. Consider these different non-hyperlinked ways of writing a sentence within a hypothetical story set in Bollywood. Fishbowl Slumdog Millionaire method. Amitabh stared grimly from a tattered old Sholay poster. Expository. Amitabh Bachchan, the Bollywood superstar, started grimly from a tattered old Sholay poster. Sholay, as everybody knew, was the blockbuster that truly established Bachchan. Global contextual. Amitabh Bachchan, the Clint Eastwood of India, stared down from a tattered old Sholay poster. Sholay, that old mix of Kurosawa and John Wayne that drove India wild. Salman Rushdie method. Amitabh, he of boundless splendor, stared down a flaming from a tattered old Sholay poster. Critics and authors alike agonize endlessly about the politics of these different voices. This particular example, crossing as it does linguistical and cultural boundaries in the difficult domain of fiction, is extreme. But in the same sorts of figure-ground voice dynamics, the same sort of figure-ground voice dynamics occur when you write in culture or non-fiction. The first simply ignores non-Indian readers, who must look in at Indian constructing meaning within a fishbowl, with no help. It is simple, but unless the intent is to genuinely write only for other Indians, which is essentially impossible on the web in English, not acknowledging the global context is a significant decision, whether deliberate or unthinking. Yeah. Amitabh started grimly from a tattered old Sholay poster, right? So if we, from the outside of India, read this, we don't have any fucking clue what's going on, right? The second method is simply technically bad. If you can't solve the problem of exposition overload, you shouldn't be writing fiction. I don't know, I probably am a bad writer because I thought this was, I don't know, I guess normal. Right? It does read a little bit like, maybe if you ask ChatGPT to write you a novel, right? And then you start correcting him like, okay, but I don't know. Amitabh Bachchan, the Bollywood superstar, started grimly from a tattered old Sholay poster. Sholay, as everybody knew, was the blockbuster that truly established Bachchan. It sounds, I guess, yeah, like young adult fiction, maybe. It sounds kind of like that. It has that tone, right? The third method is the sort of thing that keeps literary scholars up at nights, worrying about themes of oppression. Is acknowledging Clint Eastwood as the prototypical strong silent action hero a political act that legitimizes the cultural hegemony of the West? What if I'd said Bruce Lee of India or Toshiro Mifune of India? Would those sentences be acts of protest? Global contextual. Amitabh Bachchan, the Clint Eastwood of India, stared grimly down from a tattered old Sholay poster. Sholay, that odd mix of Kurosawa and John Wayne that drove India wild. Right? This does sound much better than this above, right? It has kind of more spice to it, right? But it has the question that he asks, right? You don't know if maybe it is calling him the Clint Eastwood of... Maybe it's kind of reductive or something like that. Or colonial or whatever. Rushdie pioneered the last method, the literary equivalent of theater forms where the actors acknowledge the audience and engage them in artistic ways. Rushdie finesses the problem by adopting neither simplicity nor exposition, but a deliberate, audience-aware self-exoticization with a wink. If you know enough about India, you will recognize he of boundless splendor as one literal meaning of the name Amitabh, while Sholay means flames. By putting in cryptic to outsiders cultural references, Rushdie simultaneously establishes an identity for his voice, and demands non-Indians that they either work to access constructible meaning or live with opacity. At the same time, Indians are forced to look at the familiar within a disconcerting context. Yeah, I guess that this is Amitabh, he of boundless splendor, stared down a flaming from a tattered old Sholay poster. This is kind of basically this, but with a certain allure, I guess, with a certain extra, going a little bit extra, right? A little bit sparking more curiosity, right? It is, I guess, talking about this hyperlink context, it is, I guess, that hyperlinking without, it's kind of, giving that curiosity for the hyperlink without being able to hyperlink and with words, I guess. But Rushdie's solution is far from perfect. In Midnight's Children, for instance, he translates Chand Ka Tukda, an affectional phrase for a child in Hindi, literally as piece of the moon. A more idiomatically appropriate translation would be something like sweetie pie. Depending on the connotations of moon in non-Indian languages, their constructed meaning could be anywhere from weird to random. That gets you into the whole business of talking about languages, local and global, metaphors, translation, and the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis. So yeah, I could go now, check this out. Fine if that rich tapestry of crap is what you want to write about. Not so good if you actually want to just to write a story about a pampered child. Let's check this out. Dumb. Here is a solution that was simply not available to writers in the past. Amitabh stared down grimly from a ratty old Sholay poster, and he links the Wikipedia article for Amitabh Bachchan and for Sholay. A version of the solution, curiously, has been available to comic book artists. If the sentence above had been the caption of a panel showing a boy staring at Amitabh Bachchan's Sholay poster, you would have achieved nearly the same effect. This is an extraordinarily complex construct because the sentence is a magical shape-shifting monster. It blends figure and ground compactly. The gestalt has leaky boundaries, limited only by your willingness to click. Note that you can kill the magic by making link open in new windows, which is what I do, I guess. I kill the magic. Which reduces the experience to glorified citation, since you are insistently hogging the stage and forcing context to stay within the frame. Oh, okay, that is that you can kill the magic by making the links yourself, right? It's like you as a blog author can make the link open in a new window. So I guess that would be the equivalent of clicking the end card above, instead of like telling the viewer to like go watch the video now, right? Okay, let's write a little bit about this. Hashtag live stream. Hyperlink compared to YouTube. 1, 2, 3, boom. And then not that you can claim the magic, but open equivalent. Cards, YouTube video cards opening in a new window by default compared to phone, because when you're on a phone you have to click, I guess, right? I'm not sure. I will have to explore how this works. Hyperlinks. Okay, let's copy the key paragraph that I like so much. This one. Real hyperlink artists know that paradoxically, the more blah 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 blah. Okay, so equivalent on YouTube. End cards. Okay, what makes this magical is that you might never finish reading the story or this article at all. Let's copy the sentence here as well, right? You might go down a bunny trail of exploring the culture and history of Bollywood. Traditionally, writers have understood that meaning is constructed by the reader with the text, which includes the author's project identity as the stimulus. But this construction has historically been a pretty passive act. By writing the sentence this way, I am making you an extraordinarily active meaning constructor. In fact, you will construct your own text through your quick tail. Both reading and writing are always political and ideological acts, but here I've passed on a lot more of the burden of constructing political and ideological meaning onto you. This is really interesting, right? This is what I mentioned before about that me reading this is not the same as you reading this, right? But you watching me reading this is interesting in itself, right? You are watching what I do, which is also like, it's like now another layer can be put on top, right? Now you can watch me read it, which means that you can watch what my reading looks like, right? And in this case, my reading looks not following click trails, or maybe it looks, for you maybe saw, oh, okay, why did he click this Sapir with lack of, right? I clicked this, but I didn't read it. So it is an interesting, I don't know, it's something, right? Both reading and writing are always political and ideological acts, but here I've passed on a lot more of the burden of constructing political and ideological meaning onto you. Interesting, right? This is the blog material, right? The blog post form, the hyperlink form. And YouTube, I guess, is the opposite, right? YouTube is kind of regressing back to more passive thing, right? YouTube is more passive. But also, because of the YouTube rabbit hole and all that, I think that there is a lot in common, right? Because YouTube is measured in session time and not in YouTube video time. And that's like how internally YouTube works, I think. As far as I know, YouTube works in session time. It's interesting, right? In fact, you will construct your YouTube session time /algo/ I don't know. The reason this scares some people is rather Freudian. When an author hyperlinks, she instantly transforms the author-reader relationship from parent-child to adult. You must decide how to read. Your mom does not live on the web, right? And I think this is what made me think of YouTube, right? YouTube is kind of going back to the parent-child relationship, right? You are telling me if like this kind of mega optimized YouTube is treating people like children, right? Okay. So mega optimized YouTube is basically treating people like children. Treating people like children / regressing back to whatever, right? To this parent-child relationship. And by mega optimized YouTube, I mean like this kind of, okay, you can watch this video next, right? That is kind of treating people like children in a way, right? And apparently it works, right? But maybe it works because children are on YouTube, right? Maybe the way to go forward is actually by implementing this kind of shit, right? Maybe the way to get you people who watch you who are not fucking children is to not do shit for children, right? Maybe that is the key for it, right? Maybe if you put these principles into work and treat people like people who care and all that, and who can be trusted with with hyperlinkings and all that. Maybe, I don't know. That is, I guess, my point of it all. I think we're still early on YouTube, right? There is still a lot to be created and all that. That's not all. The writer, as I said, has always been part of the constructed meaning, but her role has expanded. Literary theorists have speculated that bloggers write themselves into existence by constructing their online personas. The back cover author biography in traditional writing was a limited, unified, and carefully managed persona, usually designed for marketing rather than a consciously engineered part of the text. Online, however, you can click on my name and explore how I present myself on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. How deeply you explore me and which aspects you choose to explore will change how you construct meaning from what you read. Interesting, right? I guess this also applies on YouTube, right? And I think this is probably the key shit of it all, right? I think YouTube has put that shit to blast so much more, I guess. Or not YouTube in general, but like social media, I guess. Social media, YouTube have exploded that, I guess. So, in our three examples, we've gone from backward looking to clever to seriously consequential. But you haven't seen nothing yet. Let's talk about how the hyperlink systematically dismantles and reconstructs our understanding of the idea of a text. Holy shit. I haven't read from now on. Fractured ludic reading. The Kindle is a curiously anachronistic device. Bezos' desire was to recreate the ludic experience of physical books. To be ludic, a reading experience must be smooth and immersive to the point where the device vanishes, and you lose yourself in the world created by the text. It is the experience big old school readers love. Amazon attempted to make the physical device vanish, which is relatively unproblematic as a goal, but they also attempted to sharply curtail the possibilities of browsing and following links. In light of what we have said about constructing your own text through your click trail and your meaning from that text, it is clear that Bezos' notion of ludic is not a harmless cognitive psychology idea. It is a political and aesthetic idea, and effectively constitutes an attitude towards that element we know as dissonance. It represents classicism in reading. Interesting, right? It is true, right? That when you are like reading on a Kindle and all that, the links are always shit, right? It's like navigating links on Kindle is so fucking annoying that for many kinds of reading, it makes the experience of reading kind of worse in a sense, right? So I don't know. In this bit, this is a regular book, for example. I'm not sure if it has like footnotes or backnotes or whatever. It doesn't. It has footnotes. But yeah, also here in this book, footnotes suck because you have to like kind of tap on them and the tapping is not very responsive, right? Meanwhile, in a regular book, the footnotes are like literally on the foot, right? So, I don't know, you just have to do like, yeah, for example, here. A footnote is there in the foot. So, this is the footnote. So, it's like you can literally just look down. Writers of both fiction and non-fiction have been curiously lagging when it comes to exploring dissonance in their art. Musicians have gone from regular old dissonance through Philip Glass and Nirvana to today's experimental musicians who record, mix and play back random street noises as performance. Visual art has always embraced collages and more extreme forms of non-sequitur juxtaposition. Dance, Stravinsky, film, David Lynch, and theatre, Beckett too, have evolved toward extremes dissonance. Writers, though, have been largely unsuccessful in pushing things as far. The amount of dissonance that a single writer can create seems to be limited by a very tight ceiling that beyond which lies incomprehensible nonsense. Beckett's character Lucy in Waiting for Godot beautifully demonstrates the transition to nonsense. What's this Waiting for Godot thing? Character Lucky, he said, I guess. Characters Lucky, okay, or Lucky. No idea. In short, we do not expect musical or visual arts to be unfragmented or smooth or allow us to forget context. We can tolerate extreme closeness to random noise in other media. Most art does not demand that our experience be ludic the way writing does. Our experience can be disconnected, arm's length and self-conscious, and still constitute a legitimate reading. Word art, though, has somehow been trapped within its own boundaries, defined by a limited idea of comprehensibility and an aesthetic intimacy and smooth flow. There can be two reasons for this. First, sounds and images are natural, and since our brains can process purely unscripted stuff of natural origin, there is always an inescapable, broader sensory context within work must be situated. The color of the wall matters to the painting in a way that the chair does not matter to the reading of a book. Words are natural things, and have always lived in isolated bundles within which they can create their own natural logic. The second reason, music and visual art can be more easily created collaboratively, and rely on the diversity of minds to achieve greater levels of dissonance. An actor and a director, for example, both contribute to the experience of the movie. Writing has historically been a lonely act since the invention of the Gutenberg press. We are now returning to a world of writing that is collaborative, the way it was before Gutenberg. So what does this mean for how you understand click-happy online reading? You have two choices. You could think of click-happy web browsing as non-ludic cognition behavior that is destroying the culture of reading. This is the view adopted by those who bemoan continuous partial attention. This is Nick Carr in Is Google Making Us Stupid? Interesting, right? Or you could think of browsing as a new kind of ludic, an unsettling, fragmented experience that is still comprehensible in the sense that a David Lynch movie is comprehensible. It is a kind of ludic that can never be created within one brain. Click trails are texts whose coherence derives from your mind, but whose elements derive from multiple other minds. I think it's interesting, right? I think I have demonstrated that I think it's interesting because I record what I do on my computer, right? I log my own click trails, you could say, right? I have sometimes watched them on stream that you have asked me about them, right? In other words, when you browse and skim, you aren't distracted and unfocused. You are just reading a very dissonant book you just made up. This is interesting. This ties to the other post from the other day, right? The calculus of grid, right? It is switching the coordinates back to you, right? It's like changing the frame, the reference frame. Instead of several distinct books, you have to think on your own frame and put the frame back into you and to your coordinates, right? You are not you aren't distracted and unfocused between books. No, you are pursuing your own trail, right, of interests or whatever, right? Actually, you are reading a part of a single book, the one John Donne talked about. I first quoted in my post The Deeper Meaning of Kindle. The second part is well known, but it's the first part that interests us. All mankind is of one author, and is one volume. When one man dies, one chapter is not torn out of the book, but translated into a better language, and every chapter must be so translated. As therefore the bell that rings to a sermon calls not upon the preacher only, but upon the congregation to come, so this bell calls us all, but how much more me, who am brought so near the door by this sickness? No man is an island, entire of itself. Any man's death diminishes me, because I am involved in mankind, and therefore never send to know for whom the bell tolls, it tolls for thee. The hyperlink as the medium. If you start with McLuhan, as most people do, there are two ways to view the web. As a vast meta-medium, or as a regular McLuhanesque medium, with nothing meta about it. For a long time I adopted the meta-medium view. After all, the web can play host to every form of text, text, images, video and audio. But I am convinced now that the other view is equally legitimate, and perhaps more important. The web is a regular medium whose language is the hyperlink. The varieties of hyperlinking constitute the vocabulary of the web. If I give you an isolated URL to type into your browser for a standalone web page with a video on a piece of text, you are not really on the web. If there is no clickable hyperlink involved, you are just using the browser as a novel reading device. Interesting, right? I guess in this view, this stream itself is another document you are reading that has the possibility of linking, right? I have left in the description the links to this thing and to the thing that linked the other, right? And you can see in the right, a ton of links for shit, right? You can see a lot of recommendations depending on what you are watching. You probably will see a lot of recommendations. If you're on a phone, you will see them below, right? And that is kind of the web, the beauty of it. Maybe you are watching on a TV, right? And on a TV, shit changes, right? Now, it's not the web anymore, right? It has changed. It is using web technology, but it is no longer the web. And on a phone also, it is de-webified and it's appified. So now I am here in the YouTube app or whatever, and there are links to the web, but they take you out of the web of the YouTube app, right? Interesting. But though, to be honest, I missed some parts, so I hope you didn't ask me a question. Nah. I assume you are not listening, and don't worry. But though hyperlinking can weave through any sort of content, it has a special relation to the written word. The Gutenberg era was one where writing was largely an individual act. Before movable type, the epics and religious texts of the ancient world were harmonies of multiple voices. But what we have today is not a resurrected age of epics. The multi-voiced nature of today's hyperwriting is different. The difference lies in the fact that the entire world of human experience has been textualized online. Remember what I said about walls and paintings? The color of the wall matters to the painting in a way the chair does not matter to the reading of a book. In the web of hyperlinks, writing has found its wall. Okay, let's see. But though hyperlinking can weave through any sort of content, it has a special relation to the written word. The Gutenberg era was one where writing was largely an individual act. Yeah, so I guess this is not writing content, written content anymore. Before movable type, the epics were religious harmonies of multiple voices. But what we have today is not a resurrected age of epics. The multi-voice nature of today's hyperwriting is different. The difference lies in the fact that the entire world of human experience can be textualized online. The color of the wall matters to the painting in a way that the chair does not matter to the reading of a book. In the web of hyperlinks, writing has found its wall, I guess. Good sentence too. This is a pretty experimental thing for me, and though it interests me a lot, I'm not sure if it interests regular Ribbon Farmer either. So if you'd like me to explore this more, post a comment. I have notes on stuff on the basic nature of blogs and wikis viewed as McLuhan media, so what the death of newspapers debate looks like from the hyperlink perspective, and so forth. Lol, okay, fair. I'm not sure what I feel about footnotes, but I don't think I agree that they are the least problematic, since they lead to a very definitive kind of voice, an academic omniscient, which might be true constraining. Though I can see a first-person narrator character doing that if she has a real personality, like a neurotic professor voice. I haven't read DFW, so I guess I should read it to see what it means, what he means about footnotes and all this. Ergodic literature. In which non-trivial effort is required for the reader to traverse the text. Presented as a story about a manuscript, about a movie, about a strange house. Lol. Is the In a Winter's Dara or in which one to lol. Interesting to see this kind of table, right? There are kind of books from today or whatever. Composed on the novel Ship of Theseus by a fictional author, handwritten notes filling the book's margins, and loose supplementary materials. Whoa. How the hell do you buy this? No, I don't get it. That's crazy. Abraham stated that the idea came from finding a book on a bench that had an inscription. To whomever finds this book, please read it and take it somewhere and leave it for someone else to read. Dorst has stated that this idea for the central concept of the history to literary mysteries, the Shakespeare authorship question, and the controversy over the identity of Beethoven. He wrote Ship of Theseus first, intending to be read on its own merits. The marginal notes and ephemera were added later. The authors intended the book as a physical object, and not just a story. Abrams noted that to physically hold it is kind of the point. One reviewer called this an argument for paying extra for a physical book, a possessor of wonders that cannot be translated into digital bits. Adams will probably release a trailer online called Stranger. It was finally explained to be promoting S. An official trailer of the book was released. Was not convinced of the coherence of the novel, but recommended it as a read. Criticized the story within a story, but praised the production and design. Addressed the book as intriguing of holding a real tome, not an ebook. Interesting. Might have to buy this. House of Leaves. That was the one that he mentioned in the other thing. I mean, now I am clicking the links, right? Now I am doing the whatever. Now I am browsing hyperlinks. Is the On a Winter's Night ergodic or not? On a winter night a traveler. If on a winter's night a traveler. Okay, it's a postmodernist novel. Clearly influenced by Vladimir Nabokov. And Nabokov seems to be a constant around, right? Okay, not here, but in the one before. Control F, Nabo. Okay, similar format, Pale Fire. And now Nabokov wrote Pale Fire after the success of Lolita had made him financially independent, allowing him to retire from teaching and return to Europe. Lol. What commenced in Nice and completed in Montreux, Switzerland. Sample of metafiction, hypertext fiction. Dumb. At points, the book must be rotated to be read, making a prime example of ergodic literature. What does he say about House of Leaves? Control F. House of. Literary footnotes. I strongly recommend hunting down Mark T. House of Leaves. Through traversal of hyperlinks rather than text deliberately structured that way by one person. Yeah, I think this is interesting. Pop. And how does this relate to YouTube, I guess? Yeah, that is the session time thing. Session as a concept instead of single video. And intention versus release of that intention, right? Versus release of intention. Intention of watching. Someone watch your previous video, watch your previous video versus releasing that intention or whatever. Like, I did think that understanding media did follow. thought of folks analyzing the properties of an medium as it is the case of do as I say, not as I do. Their own ability of execute shouldn't be taken as proof or disproof of anything. If it is one thing to appreciate a point insight theoretically and objectively, and quite another to apply it in practice. I think it takes a generation or two for native practitioners of a medium to emerge. Until then, everybody is a bumbling explorer. As it is in HTML, we are stuck with static hardware and authoritarian links. Even with XSLT, what even is XSLT? XSLT. Can I comment here? Oops. He's still writing. I've been slowly reading. The past is an alien planet. They do things differently there. Though history has a stronger cosmetic resemblance to fantasy, the past had actually knights and wizards and an ironic belief in magic. I think it has a deeper kinship with science fiction. Ted Chiang's much discussed distinction between science fiction and fantasy. He's made versions of this point in his different speeches and interviews. But I can't find a canonical source of quote makes this kinship legible. He argues that science fiction posits a loveful universe that may have strange laws, but they apply to everyone, while fantasy posits a universe that recognizes some people as special, with special laws applying to them, chosen ones. This is the essence of magic as the chosen mode of escapism, as opposed to time travel or hyperspace jumps. Fuck, this is so interesting. I almost made the same point in a 2007 post, Harry Potter and the Concept of Magic, but ended up making an adjacent, less provocative and less interesting one. At a certain level, science fiction is more true than fantasy. The universe really is lawful. though not in ways we might prefer in our idle speculative fancies. The universe really is not magical in the sense of recognizing specialness in some living beings and responding differently to them. Aside, I think the appeal of the three-body problem is that it posits not just a lawful universe, but an inconveniently lawful one. Instead of fun affordances like time travel, the universe loves three-bodied chaos and dark forest shittiness on its living beings. Not only is nobody special, everybody is actually worse off than we imagine, because the universe is lawful in a shittier way than we imagine. It's a sort of hyper science fiction. Good history may not offer clean-edged lawfulness, but it at least obliquely suggests a universe that's some mix of noisy lawfulness and path-dependent arbitrariness. There is no room for magic, there is no room for chosen ones, or chosen people, or manifest destiny typed narratives. While there is, of course, plenty that is uncertain in any work of history, it is not uncertainty of the sort that opens the door to magic. Despite the desperate belief in magic that suffused Istanbul through the millennia, the city never actually enjoyed the workings of magic. In good history books, as in good science fiction, there are no chosen ones. There may be characters who believe other characters are chosen ones, but you, as the reader, don't have to. To really appreciate and enjoy Dune, you kinda have to recognize Paul Atreides is not actually special, whatever the Bene Gesserit nuts and Fremen think. But to enjoy Lord of the Rings, you kinda have to buy into the specialness of elves and wizards, even if Frodo is not that special. This is true. There is a genre of history, if it deserves that label, that resembles fantasy: hagiography. Any approach to history that posits the existence of greatness of some sort, great man theory, great nation, exceptionalism narratives, one true religion, one true ideology, is hagiography. Unsurprisingly, hagiography sells better than history, just as fantasy sells better than science fiction. Not surprisingly, I don't enjoy fantasy very much, and I can't stand hagiography at all. To fans of those genres, this probably comes across as some sort of weak spirit reluctance to recognize greatness or chosenness, and resentment over my own ordinariness. But that's not it. Greatness is simply deeply unsatisfying as a feature of an explanation for anything. It's a deus ex machina. I am happy to acknowledge and admire exceptional accomplishments by individual groups. I am happy to admit I'm in the wrong half of distributions of many, perhaps most, desirable traits. I just don't find the explanations in terms of greatness, or chosenness, or specialness to be explanations at all, let alone satisfying ones. In both natural and human laws, if you're forced to posit two kinds of laws for two kinds of people, you've basically failed to make sense of your world. There are two kinds of people in the world, those who divide people into two kinds and those who don't. There are kings, knights, gods, saints and wizards aplenty in Istanbul, a tale of three cities, but it is not a story about magic or the specialness. There are many characters parading through the book who had great attached to their names: Alexander, Catherine, Suleiman. But the account of history does not rest upon a presumption of axiomatic greatness possessed by some actors. That many saw them and continue to see them as great certainly affected the course of history somewhat, but it's not part of the explanation. It's not even particularly important as a feature of the story needing an explanation. At most, in good histories, belief in greatness helps explain the actions of some actors, just as belief in God helps explain the actions of others. Neither God nor greatness is necessary for good history writing, and in fact an ironic belief in either of the part of the historian weakens, often fatally, the quality of the history. The effects on fantasy literature aren't as bad. Positing greatness or chosenness or any of many equivalent traits that divide humans into two types based on laws that apply to them can make for fun narrative premises. Preferring hagiographic histories centered on greatness suggests intellectual weakness to me, the primary failure of Straussians, but preferring fantasy over science fiction seems more like Halmer's preference for a particular mode of escapism. Interesting. Fascinating. Would I be correct in inferring that you believe, or at least fear, that the three-body problem describes our actual universe? Instead of fun affordances like time travel, the universe loves three-body chaos and dark forest shittiness. And I can help but wonder, is that linked to your inability to believe in any sort of specialness? Oh, he doesn't answer anymore, I guess. Just sense that there is an ongoing relation with the three-body framing that I just came across in a movie by that title and playing out with Mao Cultural Revolution and okay, beautifully written, has anybody suggested? How do you feel about techno-deterministic? I think they often played. Maybe Steve Jobs. Interesting. Dumb. It does sound interesting, but for me it's still hard to say I would be interested if you know what I mean. Oops, 4 minutes ago, so I'm not sure what it was, but... -4. The history book comment. Okay, I think I'm closing this. I'm replacing that with, let's say, this one. Editor. Bloop. And the video is there for whoever wants to see it. So thank you for being here. Bye bye.